Well, let's look at this with Dr. Mohammed Munir, who's a virologist at Lancaster University in the north of England. Welcome to DW, Doctor. How reliable is that this data on Omicron, given that it's only been it's only been identified for a few weeks?
I think so far we all have modeling data, and these are one of the few studies that we have information from real life, which mean the people who've been infected with Omicron, they've been compared with what has been the situation with the Delta variant. And based on that, it was concluded that the severity of the disease is very low, and particularly for the hospitalization and for the emergency. But there are certainly caveats in this data collection is that most of the data being collected from people who are very young, 40 years old, because that is where the Omicron has been pretty prevalent. And also there is no cohort of unvaccinated people, because most of the time the Omicron has been in vaccinated or previously exposed people. But all in all, the overall trend is that it is milder compared to the Delta variant.
You see, mild is an interesting word. I wonder if you might worry that this news might actually cause people to take it less seriously.
I think that is my major worry out of this data, because this data is only, as I said, from the younger population, from vaccinated people, but we don't really know what Omicron would do in people who are unvaccinated or in the vulnerable group or even in children, because we don't have that information at the moment. So therefore, but even if it is proven to be milder, milder doesn't mean it's inert. It would still be considered as a fatal disease. People who would be infected with having known or unknown vulnerability, there could be the different outcome. And also, every person's immune response work very differently, so may not be the same situation with everybody. So I think moving forward, we have to be very cautious in reducing the transmission of this Omicron.
OK. Stay with us, please, Doctor, as we sort of widen the discussion. The World Health Organization has argued against rich countries offering third or even fourth shots, while much of the world's population has yet to get there first. Here's Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus.
Blanket booster programs are likely to prolong the pandemic rather than ending it by diverting supply to countries that already have high levels of vaccination coverage, giving the virus more opportunity to spread and mutate. It's important to remember that the vast majority of hospitalizations and deaths are in unvaccinated people, not unboosted people.
So back to Dr. Munir. Sorry, Doctor. Where are you on boosters?
I completely agree with Tedros, and I think we cannot emphasize enough that how important it is to equally distribute the vaccine, because until we don't really immunize people back in that country where possibility of this variant is to mutate more and more, we cannot really say that we have a good handle on pandemic. Boosters are certainly critical to put a level of the neutralizing antibody very high, but compared to people who have not got even the first dose, then it doesn't make any relevance, because that is where we are living in this pandemic. We have to think about a global scale, not as a continent or at an individual country level. So certainly boosters are important, but at the same time, people who are at the frontline health worker or are vulnerable, they need to be given doses at the same time.
Right. Now, as people around the world head into holidays at this time of year, what's your advice on how best to keep safe and stay healthy?
What we have seen so far is that Omicron is very good in spreading within the community. Even people who are vaccinated, people who are apparently considered healthy or have recovered from previous infection, which means that we have to be extremely cautious. And cautiousness comes with having a rapid testing. And if you're negative, then you go and meet your family. Keep your circle low, keep your nutrition very high, and if possible, keep your rooms ventilated.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us. We wish you well. Thanks for joining us. Dr. Mohammed Munir from Lancaster University.
Thanks for having me.